I mean, it looks, I guess, like a normal oatmeal cookie. Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today, I'm going to be testing an oatmeal raisin cookie recipe from one of my subscribers. I'm not sure how to say this name, but Dangerna left a comment saying this is their grandmother's oatmeal raisin cookie recipe, and they've made it, but it doesn't turn out quite right. So today, I'll be trying it 4 different ways to see how adjusting the types of oats used and the types of fat used impact the final cookie. I'm really excited to test a recipe from a subscriber. If you'd like me to test something specific in the future, just leave a comment below letting me know what, and I'm happy to try it out. If you find this recipe test useful, please give me a big thumbs up and hit subscribe. It's my very first time making this recipe, so let's see how it goes. So the recipe calls for chopped pecans. I didn't have pecans, so I'm using walnuts today. And it's 2/3 of a cup chopped, so that will be measured after chopping. So I'm just gonna do this kind of coarsely, and then just evenly dividing the nuts between the 2 bowls. So the recipe calls for self-rising flour, which is something I don't buy. But you can make your own self-rising flour by taking all-purpose flour and adding baking powder and salt. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. So for each cup of all-purpose flour, you add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. You also have to add salt, and the salt that we're adding now is above and beyond what's called for in the recipe. So it's a 1/4 teaspoon per cup of all-purpose flour, and then the base recipe called for 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And now just mixing it all together. So first I'm using half butter, half shortening. So this is a 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, and then a 1/2 cup of butter flavored shortening. So I'm gonna start by just creaming the butter and shortening together. So that looks kind of nice and aerated. And now I'm going to add in the granulated and light brown sugar and mix on high speed until light and fluffy. All right, and this is super light and fluffy. And now one at a time, I'm gonna add my room temperature eggs. And so you just wanna mix that for about 4 minutes. Next, just adding in the vanilla extract. The wet ingredients are all incorporated. Now I'm just adding our prepared flour mixture. And I say this with every cookie recipe, but you are mixing this just to combine. So I'm weighing the full amount of dough so that I can divide that in half evenly. And now it's time for the oats. So if you're not familiar with the difference between old-fashioned and quick oats, old-fashioned oats are really big. The quick oats are smaller pieces. So I imagine that the different particle sizes here are going to have an impact on the total cookie. That's why we're isolating this variable. First up, we'll do the old-fashioned. I'm gonna pop this in here. And you wanna mix the oats for just about 30 seconds to distribute. And now the quick oats. And now we can add our nuts and raisins and quickly mixing to combine. So now we've got 2 out of the 4 done. We've got our old-fashioned oats and our quick oats using a combination of butter and shortening. Now I'm going to repeat this entire process using only butter. I'm not going to show you all of that, so the next time you see me, these doughs will have chilled for 1 hour. All right, so I've got my bowls labeled cookie A, cookie B. I've got my parchment paper labeled cookie A and cookie B. I'm gonna scoop these out using my OXO medium-size cookie scoop. The recipe said to use a large ice cream scoop, so I'm gonna do 2 medium scoops and assume that that's about even. I'm just kind of forming these into balls and then flattening them out. The recipe said to go push them down so they're 3/4 of an inch thick. So that's kind of what it looks like. Maybe a 2-inch diameter. And then I'm just gonna bake 6 of each flavor. And I'm gonna save the leftover dough because I don't need this many cookies in my house at one time. The cookies are done baking. In total, I needed to leave them in for about 23 minutes. The recipe said for 15, but they looked completely raw after 15 minutes. So it's possible that my dough balls were a little bit bigger than what the recipe was calling for. The cookies didn't really spread, so I kept waiting and hoping that something would happen as the heat continued to melt the shortening and the butter, but that didn't happen. Cookie A and cookie C. So I mean, they're basically the same. Overall appearance, the butter one is a little thinner, but that's entirely possible that it was just a different portion when I was scooping. So as far as texture goes, this is the shortening. It's pretty soft. I'm gonna give it a little taste. So it's moist inside. It is definitely fully cooked. It's not overcooked though, which is a relief. I was expecting this to be a little past. I mean, overall, it's a dense cookie. It's a little bit crispy on the outside. So that's with shortening. This is all butter. So let's see. So this is a little bit softer. Looks cooked about the same. The flavor of this is much better. Even though I used butter flavored shortening in cookies A and B, this is very rich tasting. The comparison between the shortening and all butter, it is quite noticeable. And I definitely prefer the butter. So those were both made with the old-fashioned oats. So the versions made with the quick oats, again, look about the same. There's really no kind of meaningful difference. And just to show you, the old-fashioned oats and the quick oats, I mean, they look identical. Texture-wise, I'm just gonna eat one of the butter ones since that's what I prefer. But the inside, honestly, you can't really tell the difference. The size of the oat when uncooked is so much bigger, but the texture of the cookie is exactly the same. So it really doesn't matter there. So overall, it's a very tasty oatmeal raisin cookie recipe. Did it turn out? I'm not sure. Dangerna, will you let me know, did these cookies turn out like your grandma's? Because I'm just really not sure if I have a good result or not. Whether these turned out correctly or not, they do taste good. So if you want to give these a try, I would say definitely go for it. My recommendation would be to skip the refrigeration of the dough prior to baking. I think that's really hindering getting a spread on the cookie. I really hope that you like this recipe test. If you'd like to see more like this, leave a comment below letting me know what you'd like me to test next. Please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.